Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Numerics with Nadia. In today's video, we're going to go over types of angles. This video is part of the beginner geometry playlist. We've already gone over how to classify two-dimensional shapes. We've defined what a polygon is. We've gone through the properties of quadrilaterals, and we've gone through types of lines in geometry. So if you haven't watched those 3 videos, I would definitely recommend watching those 3 first, prior to this one. But for today's lesson, we are going to go over what is an angle, different types of angles, and as always, we are going to end off with practice. So first off, let's go over and define what an angle even is. An angle is formed by 2 rays that share a common vertex or endpoint. Excuse my little typo here. So the 3 key terms here are angle, obviously, right? That's what we're defining. But the other key words here are ray, vertex, and endpoint. We defined what a ray was in our last video, types of lines in geometry. I will go ahead and flag that right here for you guys to watch, but I will also review it here for you guys. The vocab words we're going to go over in today's lesson, remember, add to that vocab page that we've been working on, is going to be ray, vertex, and endpoint. So the definition of a ray is a line with one endpoint that extends infinitely in one direction. So just like in the last videos we've done, I'll draw a little visual example for us as well. So let's reread the definition. A ray is a line with one endpoint that extends infinitely in one direction. We know an endpoint looks like a filled in circle. And then infinitely, well, that means that the line ends with an arrow. So that's what the visual representation of a ray would look like. Now I'll move on to vertex. The definition of a vertex is a point where 2 or more lines intersect. So what does this look like visually? Well, let's draw it out. So we have a point, right? And then 2 lines or more could be intersecting there. So we'll label our point with the endpoint, and that is where our vertex would be because that is where the 2 lines intersect and meet. And then our last vocab word for today's lesson is an endpoint. We've already been referring to this word a little bit. An endpoint, all that means is that it is the point at which a line segment ends, right? Or starts. It could be the beginning point as well. But all it looks like is that little filled in circle we've been talking about. And if in this case it's a line segment with a beginning point and an endpoint, the endpoint would be where the line segment ends. So now that we've gone over our vocab words that we'll be needing for today's lesson, let's go through the different types of angles in geometry. So the angles that we'll be going over here, what differentiates them is the angle measure, and for our beginning stages, it's going to be measured by degrees. So this first one I've drawn here, I have my angle measure labeled with blue. So this angle measure is between 0 degrees and 90 degrees, right? Because it looks pretty small. I'll go through and draw them all out and then we'll label them. Our next one is more L-shaped, and that red little signature there, we already recognize that, right? That angle measures exactly 90 degrees. Think about if you can remember what that type of angle is called. And now we'll get into our third most common type of angle. This one I've labeled the angle measure in purple. This angle measure is between 90 degrees and 180 degrees. So these, like I've already said, are the 3 most common types. So now I'll fill in what they are all called. So an angle measured between 0 degrees and 90 degrees, that one is called acute. A way of remembering it is, it's so cute, right? It's little. The second type, this one should be a review, an angle that measures exactly 90 degrees is called a right angle. And then an angle that measures between 90 degrees and 180 degrees, that one would be called obtuse. So these 3 are super, super important. Write these down in your notebooks with the visuals, and we will continue to learn a few more types of angles. We have 2 more types of angles to go over. The next one looks like this. It is a straight line, and our angle goes almost that full half circle, right? So how can we represent this? How could we explain this? This angle measures exactly 180 degrees. We'll go through and name it in a little bit. The second type of angle we're going to look at, it looks like two lines almost on top of each other, right? This one is unique because this angle measures exactly 0 degrees. So the angle that measures exactly 180 degrees, that is called a straight angle, which I've labeled for you guys. And the angle that measures 0 degrees, well, that one is called a zero angle. Now, before we go to our little practice section where we will visually classify all these angles, let's make sure that we have all 5 types written in our notebook because these are going to be very helpful notes for us later on when we get more into our more difficult geometry topics. All right, you guys, now that we've gone through 5 types of angles in geometry, let's get into our practice section. So our practice section, the directions say to name the following types of angles based on the given diagrams. So if we look at number one, well, that one is a right angle, right? Because that angle measures exactly 90 degrees, so we can label number 1 as a right angle. Now, if we look at number 2 has no angle, right? It's just measuring 0 degrees, so we know that number 2 would be a 0 angle. Now we'll look at number 3. Number 3 looks small, and it looks like it is less than 90 degrees, right? So since it's less than 90 degrees, we can assume that this one is an acute angle. Now, if we look at number 4 looks like just a straight line, right? And we know that that angle measures 180 degrees, so we would classify number 4 as a straight angle. And our last practice problem for today, looking at number 5, this angle, it looks like it's greater than 90 degrees, right? But it's less than 180 degrees, so it's somewhere in between the two. And the name that we would classify this one as would be an obtuse angle. So number 5 would be an obtuse angle. All right, you guys, that brings us to the end of our lesson. Great work today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please feel free to share this video with a friend, subscribe if you haven't already, don't forget to like the video, as well as comment any questions you have down below or any other video topics you would like to see, and I will see you guys next time.